The family's first Anthony winter was in recession. Gary was en route to Jay Jolly's office, the hospital administrator having summoned him. The maintenance personage pondering a reason for the audience, a myriad of possible scenario-giving question. Arriving, he was asked to be seated. Jay inaugurated the conversation with the notice that he was changing the organizational structure of the maintenance, housekeeping, and linen control departments. He was removing the current maintenance and housekeeping supervisors, instituting a singular position of plant service manager to oversee the physical and environmental elements, including responsibility for the 3 departments. Gary nodding his understanding, but was aghast at what ensued. The administrator continued, promulgating his aspirations, asking Gary to fulfill the newly commissioned position of plant service manager. Gary was awestruck with Jay's pronouncement being totally unexpected, speechless when asked if he would undertake the position. His only reply was to accept. Jay proceeded to assert a list of expectations compliance with the new regulations, requiring material safety data sheet records, written policies, procedures, and documentation for both housekeeping and maintenance departments, including detailed log for equipment inspections, safety, and an annual budget agenda incorporating plant utilities, housekeeping supplies, linen expenditures, equipment replacement and repairs. Gary listened to the administrator's contemplations with gathering certainty. Owing to a significant perception, his respect for Jay Jolly and his confidence, Gary could accomplish the assignment. The meeting concluding, a monetary question never entering into Gary's thought process until the administrator initiated the wage compensation, acknowledging he had reviewed the compensatory amount that similar facilities conferred for the position, and would commensurate accordingly. Gary exiting the office, finding his maintenance assistant salary having just doubled. Arriving home, the news of his appointment bursting to be released, his incitation rising as he revealed to Jen his meeting with Jay and his ascendancy to a new position. When acknowledging his new compensatory wage, expecting an enthusiastic congratulatory presence, instead acrimony. Jen going into a vindictive tirade. Gary was totally taken aback. Never in the past years had he ever experienced this aspect of her personality. Her reasoning was without logic, erupting into a dissertation on the audacity that his new hourly wage now exceeded hers and that of embarking nurses. Gary's immediate inclination was to abstain from the confrontation until a more phlegmatic disposition prevailed. Jen's perplexing response was now indelibly inscribed in a hidden clandestine cultivation forever exposed. Jen's tirade prepared him for the inevitable at work, having to confront his supervisor Roy, and the director of housekeeping Ed. The encounter with Ed was the most difficult, harboring a vindictive resentment of Gary, similar to what he had heard at home. Ed's concern wasn't so much about compensation, but the loss of his supervisory position, Gary assuring him a continuance of employment. Another encounter from an unsuspecting source, Frank Hodson, the ambulance director, voicing a negative opinion of the change, especially about Ed. Frank's objection being, Ed provided another function as EMT on the ambulance service, allowing him to take call during his hospital hours without any reservations. His position as a supervisor not interrupting the housekeeping department's dispensation. This would change with Ed's new position as a scheduled staff member, no longer endowed to leave his assigned tasks uncompleted from an ambulance run. Gary's quandary with Ed coming to resolution. After 3 days, Ed resigned his hospital employment. Roystein presented a totally different circumstance. His years of experience and knowledge of every nook and cranny of the building was invaluable. Roy was elusive, his quiescent demeanor and non-communicative disposition making it difficult to extract an assessment of his supposition about the abrupt developments. Gary finally asking him to sit down and listen to what he had to say, clarifying. The only changes would be in Gary's administering the required documentation, relieving Roy of departmental representation, and the embody accountability to the hospital administration. Gary, strongly emphasizing, Roy would remain in a perfunctory maintenance position, his salary remaining the same, but with a new job description and new title, that of hospital engineer. The atmosphere in the hospital seemed somewhat different. The change in plant and environmental management was met with congratulatory acknowledgement by most of the hospital staff. Gary, sensing his management skills and capability in the new position would be on trial, recalling an axiom apropos to his new position. Rank does not confer privilege or power, it imposes responsibility.